Greetings, friends around the world. This is Dr. Bob Thiel for the Bible News Prophecy Channel. Will USA spying help the beast power? If so, how? During the summer of 2013, allegations have surfaced about the United States doing a lot more spying, not only on its own citizens, but also on nations part of the European Union. Now, whether or not all these allegations are true, the main ones have not been publicly denied by the U.S. government. The reality is this does have prophetic ramifications, and this is going to end up helping the beast of Revelation. Now, before going further, it needs to be realized that the end-time beast power, the final king of the north of biblical prophecy, will be a European power. If you want more specific details on that, we have an article at www.cogwriter.com. That's www.cogwriter.com on that. And we also have a YouTube video titled, "Can You Prove That the Beast to Come is European?" And so you might want to watch that. But anyway, the current allegations about the U.S. and its espionage in Europe needs to be understood in the light of the fact that the final beast power to rise up is going to be European. Now let me read from an article in CNN, the headline, "Europe Furious, Shocked by Report of U.S. Spying. European Union warned if the report is accurate, it will have tremendous repercussions." European Parliament President Martin Schulz said, "I am deeply worried and shocked about the allegations. If the allegations prove to be true, it would be an extremely serious matter which will have a severe impact on EU-US relations. On behalf of the European Parliament, I demand full clarification and require further information speedily from the US authorities with regard to these allegations." And to take it a step further, this is a report that's been translated from the German newspaper Der Spiegel, quote, "The US placed bugs in EU representation in Washington and infiltrated its computer network. Cyber attacks were also perpetuated against Brussels in New York and Washington." So we see that the United States has been accused of not just monitoring emails, paying attention to telephone calls, which we presume that they'll continue to do that pretty much no matter what, but also doing a cyber attack and actually placing bugs, listening devices, into EU buildings. And another report says European lawmakers were shocked at reports that U.S. intelligence agents bugged EU offices on both sides of the Atlantic. Now, the part that gets even more interesting, this is from Reuters. The United States taps 500 million phone calls, emails, and text messages in Germany in a typical month, and it has classed its biggest European ally as a target similar to China, according to secret U.S. documents quoted by a German newspaper. This document Spiegel cited showed that the United States recognized Germany as a, quote, third class, end quote, partner, and its surveillance there was stronger than in any other EU country, similar to the extent that the United States monitors China, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. On an average day, NSA monitored about 20 million German phone conversations, 10 million internet data sets, rising to 60 million phone connections on busy days, the report said. So this is an outrage to the Europeans. If this is true, this is something that the Europeans are not going to forget. Germany's justice minister said this was reminiscent of the Cold War and said it must ultimately be immediately and extensively explained by the American side whether media reports about completely disproportionate tapping measures by the U.S. and the EU are accurate or not, said Sabine Lusenheiser Schongenberger in a statement. "It's beyond our imagination that our friends in the U.S. consider the Europeans as enemies," she said. "If the reports are accurate, it's reminiscent of actions among enemies during the Cold War." Now, the U.S. government believes it's got a right to spy on pretty much everything, and it does have its big brother tactics, and it's not a surprise that they got caught on it. But the European Union is not happy with this, and they've gone further and said that the European Council building that's used for its Council of Ministers, the Union's main decision-making legislative body, have been bugged. The President of France, Francois Hollande, said that surveillance must stop immediately or they cannot have trade negotiations with the United States. So we're already seeing some ramifications. Germany said if this is true, this is unacceptable. Yet U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said, "That's not unusual. Nations do this all the time. I would say every country in the world that's engaged in international affairs and national security undertakes a lot of activities, protects its national security. And all kinds of information contributes to that." Well, the Europeans are not thrilled about this. Now, I'd like to read something else that's been reported. Quote, according to an NSA, that's National Security Administration document, dated September 2010, only a few countries labeled as close friends by the USA are explicitly exempted from monitoring. Now, of course, the USA monitors all kinds of stuff, but there's a few countries that they don't. Specifically, they don't have to. The only ones I guess they don't consider potential enemies. Who are they? The Anglo countries. Which ones? Britain, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. So within the United States government, those are the close friends. Everybody else is a potential enemy. Now, what is Europe up to that the United States think has got to do this level of espionage? Now, there's at least two views of the United States government about Europe. One is that they're a very close ally, we should support them, work with them, etc. But the other view is, look, we fought a couple of wars in Europe. You can't trust the Europeans. They could be a potential enemy. The Europeans have the Large Hadron Collider. The Germans are developing something called the FAIR, which is their version of a collider as well, the advanced. They're developing technology. In addition to that, while most Americans are comfortable with the GPS system, which is a global positioning satellite system that people use to find directions, amongst other things, but did you know that the United States actually is going to be relying on part of Europe's up-and-coming Galileo system for part of its military defense? Why? Because of U.S. budget cuts and other reasons, they don't have all the satellites up that the United States needs. So in the next couple of years, they're going to start to rely on Europe's Galileo system. Well, why is that important? Because when Europe proposed doing a Galileo system, both Britain and the UK, there were leaders that said, we don't want the Europeans to develop this. Why? Because if they develop this, they could attack us. Yet, not only does the Europeans develop this, the United States is actually going to be in a situation where we're going to rely on part of Europe's Galileo system for part of our military defense. This means we have to share communications back and forth with Europe, and in the event of some type of confrontation with Europe, they could have the ability to block U.S. response. Furthermore, the U.S. has got some reasons they're wondering what's going on there. So what are they going to do about this? They've been caught, and they don't know what to do about it. Now, by having two views of the Europeans, in this respect, the United States is hypocritical. On one hand, we tell them they're friends. On the other hand, we bug them or spy on them more than regular enemies, or as much as some of potential enemies. Furthermore, the Germans have noticed this, and I saw something in the German press that basically said that the Americans like Big Brother spying on other people, and kind of hinted that the Americans were hypocritical about this. Now, I'd like to read something from the Bible, and this time I'm going to read something from the King James Version. And you might find this interesting, because the Bible actually warns that God's going to send a European-based power against a hypocritical nation. So Isaiah chapter 10, starting in verse 5. O Assyrian, the rod of mine anger, and the staff in her hand is mine indignation. I will send him against a hypocritical nation, against the people of my wrath will I give him a charge to take spoil, to take the prey, and to tread down like the mire of the streets. So you say, well, okay, but they probably don't really want to do that because they're peaceful. That's true, except, look at verse 7. Howbeit, he meaneth not so, neither doth his heart think so, but it is in his heart to destroy and cut off nations, not a few. For he saith, are not my princes altogether kings? Is not Calno as Carchemish? Is not Hamath as Arpad? Is not Samaria as Damascus? As my hand hath found the kingdom of idols, in whose graven images did excel them of Jerusalem, Samaria. Verse 11. Shall I not, as I've done to Samaria and her idols, do to Jerusalem and her idols? So there's a warning that people who are not truly worshiping God have various types of idolatrous practices, which, by the way, can include worship, money, and possessions, are going to be attacked because they're a hypocritical nation. And I think in this espionage matter, the United States has shown that it's definitely along that side. Now, some in Germany are very upset about this and says that the world is laughing at the naive EU leaders. That was one of the headlines. Why? Because the EU trusted the United States. And it says, divide and rule. According to this principle, the Americans went in scrutinizing EU long ago by the NSA. With the code name Dropmeyer, a bug was smuggled into the EU encrypted fax message. A central question is how the EU could be so stupid as to leave to join the Americans to give them a chance to bug them at their central facts. So some Germans are saying, wait, you should never have trusted the Americans. But I thought the United States has been protecting Europe. Europe now says, and Germans say, you never should have trusted the Americans, which suggests, of course, that the Germans, at least a lot of their leaders, don't trust us now. The French president said he found this kind of behavior, we can't accept this kind of behavior from our partners and allies. The spokesman for German Chancellor Angela Merkel said while Germany wanted the EU-US free trade deal, quote, mutual trust is necessary in order to come to an agreement. So she's hinting, if you guys are doing this, that this is not trust. This is not acceptable. And German's conservative Frankfurter Allgemeine newspaper said, quote, Washington is shooting itself in the foot. And here's another one that says, declaring the EU offices to be a legitimate attack target is more than an unfriendly act of a machine that knows no bounds and may be out of control of politics and the courts. And there are more comments about this. People say this is shocking. The United States is acting like the old Soviet KGB. And this is happening right now. So what's going to happen because of this? Well, the Germans and the Europeans want the United States to tell them everything. What have you been spying on? How are you doing it? And according to something I saw on the German press, the U.S. is going to do this. This is a machine translated from a German newspaper. And this is from the Zeit.d website. Obama promises EU all the information. Given the outrage over the U.S. spy situation in Europe, the U.S. president tried to relax. He also tried to justify his intelligence operations. But the agreement apparently is to give the EU all the information. This is unprecedented. And not only is this going to set a future precedent for the United States to give the Europeans more information, including more military information, more espionage information about the United States, I believe that the beast power, when the beast power decides to monitor finances and other things, it will use what the United States did as a precedent. This is a dangerous precedent. Now, if you turn to your Bibles, we're going to go to Revelation chapter 13, starting in verse 15. Because the Bible warns about a power, it's going to have a lot of power and control. And it says, he was granted power, this is the beast, support of the beast, to grant image to the breath of the beast, and that image of the beast should speak and cause as many who would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. This is for the false prophet. It says, he causes all, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads. Verse 17, that no one may buy or sell except he who has the name or the mark of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him who understands calculate the number of the beast, for it's the number of man. It's the number 666. Now this particular beast is the European beast power, the king of the north power. Now, the book of Daniel says something very interesting about him, and this time I'm going to read from the Young's literal translation. In Daniel chapter 8, verse 23. And in the latter time of their kingdom, about the perfecting of the transgressors, stand up doth a king, fierce of face and understanding hidden things. So someone's going to rise up who understands hidden things, secret things. Now this may include his knowledge of biblical and non-biblical prophecies, but secret things or hidden things may be things that are secrets the United States has given him, as well as his own surveillance. It's likely going to take computers and artificial intelligence for the beast power to be able to control buying and selling and to know all this stuff about hidden things. But I do believe that's going to happen. Furthermore, the United States indubitably is going to be pressured to provide the European Union assurances it's not going to do this kind of spying in the future. Yeah, the United States is still going to spy in Europe no matter what it says. But what if it does a lot less spying, which I think it's going to do? Well, this means that this European power will, one, understand U.S. espionage. Two, if they start to talk about having plans to destroy the United States will not be as privy to it as otherwise, and perhaps leaders and the administration in the future And by the way, I don't believe it'll be the current Obama administration. The administration in the future will not have enough information to realize what's going on in Europe. The Bible warns that this king of the north power is going to go against the nation with the strongest fortresses. You can look it up in Daniel 11, verse 39. Take over the land and divide it for gain. Well, who has the strongest fortresses but the United States? And why you say, well, the United States is too strong of a power for this to happen. If you look at Revelation 13, 1 through 4, you see the world will marvel when the beast power succeeds. And I think a combination of technology, spying, surprise, problems in the United States are going to predispose the U.S. for being taken over, including the high U.S. debt. I've long warned that the United States would share too much military information with the Europeans to its downfall. Now that the United States has gotten caught for its espionage, I think this will do it as well. While most Americans do not believe that any real threat is going to come from Germany or Europe, according to Bible prophecy in Revelation chapter 13 and Daniel chapter 11, it is going to happen. The Europeans are upset. They're going to use this crisis as part of their justification to get more information from the United States. The Europeans will eventually tell the United States that they're over this, but I don't believe everybody in Europe is going to be over this. The Europeans will have a long enough memory, and this is going to come back to bite the United States. This espionage scandal, even if hardly any of it's true, even if none of it's true, is going to result in the United States sharing more information with Europe, spying less on Europe, and making the United States more vulnerable for an attack on Europe. This is Dr. Bob Thiel, the Bible News Prophecy Channel.